Welcome in to the Ravens Rundown by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. Thanks for joining us as you guys file in for our live show. Shout out your city. Tell us where you are watching from today. And once you tell us where you're watching from, we will shout you out and get you on the show as we get things started here today. This is our build-up portion of the show. We encourage you to get in the chat and get lively in the discussion today. We're going to be talking about Odell Beckham Jr., Kareem Hunt. We'll also be taking a look at Todd McShay's new mock draft. We also have a look at draft targets. We'll go over all of that coming up in just a little while from right now. But as we do these live shows, we're very interactive. I know we've only done a few of these Ravens Rundown live shows at this point, but want you guys to just be along for the party. Be along for the ride here today as we're talking about your favorite team. And I see Jacob is checking in from Maryland. Thank you, Jacob, for joining us. I see Adam is also weighing in on the OBJ question. Will OBJ sign with the Ravens? He got a contract offer, according to reports. We'll tell you more about that coming up later on of what that contract offer details are from the report that came out from ESPN's Adam Schefter. We'll get to that here in just a second. So we'll give you the latest on that situation, Adam. So stay tuned for that. I see Jimmy is checking in from Fayetteville, North Carolina. Jimmy, thanks for being here. Jimmy with the IE, not the Y, Jimmy. So much like the great NASCAR driver Jimmy Johnson. Not the football coach, Jimmy Johnson, that is. Let's see. I see Honey is checking in from San Diego, where the San Diego State Aztecs lost in the national title game last night. Well, I guess they lost in Houston. I was actually at the championship game last night between UConn and San Diego State. So, Honey, I feel your pain about the loss for San Diego State. Great fan base. They deserve to be there. Awesome job to be on that stage last night, but ran into a UConn team that was just too good. They were by far the best team in the tournament, and ultimately UConn is the national champions of college basketball. But nonetheless, Honey Sneaker or Seeker, I don't even know if you're a San Diego State fan or not, but shout out to the San Diego State Aztecs on a great season. Let us know where you guys are watching from as you guys enter in the chat. I see Bill was checking in from Augusta, Georgia. That is where the Masters will be held coming up later this week. And should be exciting to see the Masters in a full swing. I love major championship golf. I'm going to be tuned in each and every day to the action down there from Augusta. Bill, hopefully you get to make it out there and see the best golfers in the world competing for that green jacket, Bill. Thanks for checking in to the chat. Yes, we got Bill checking in from Augusta, Georgia. Yes. Right. I hope Bill's getting to go to the Masters, and we also have Honey, that is a student at San Diego State who just lost the national title last night. I was just telling Honey I was at the title game last night, and unfortunate loss there for San Diego State, but nonetheless a great effort. Yeah, that was easy money to go 7.5 on UConn last night. Will the Ravens trade Lamar Jackson? That is the million-dollar question, and we have talked about it for quite some time. I'll tell you this much. We don't have any new updates today on the Lamar Jackson front. We're not going to talk a whole lot about Lamar, to be honest with you today. There's so much other stuff going on, whether it's OBJ or getting ready for the draft in a few weeks. We're going to talk about the rest of the happenings with the Baltimore Ravens. But nonetheless, will the Ravens end up trading Lamar Jackson, or will he end up staying with the Baltimore Ravens? Let us know in the comments section what you think. Y for yes, in for no if the Ravens will trade Lamar Jackson. Got an update from Bill in Augusta, by the way. He says no tickets this year to the Masters. Oh, very unfortunate. Bill, too bad you're not there. Johnny checking in from Beaumont, Texas. Johnny, thanks for joining us here on this Tuesday afternoon. Our poll question today, will OBJ sign with the Ravens? So we're going to talk about OBJ coming up in just a few moments. There was a report that came out over the weekend from ESPN's Adam Schefter that the Ravens have made an offer to OBJ. We'll go over the details and what that situation looks like here in just a few moments from right now. But will the Ravens sign OBJ? Should they sign OBJ? That's our question that we're asking you right now. If you think they should, type OBJ for yes. If you don't think they should, type no BJ for no. OBJ for yes, no BJ for no. Very simple like that. You have to space it out for emphasis, right? No BJ. No particular reason. I just feel like that you need to do that to make a point. So let us know what's going to happen with OBJ. 57% of you so far, with 23 votes coming in, say OBJ will sign with the Baltimore Ravens. So we'll have that update coming up in just a few moments from right now. Name a player the Ravens should draft. Coming up on today's show, we are going to go over Todd McShay's newest mock draft. He went 2 rounds. Now, I know the Ravens don't have a second-round pick, but at least we will tell you who McShay is projecting the Ravens to draft and go over those details here in just a few moments from right now. So stay tuned for that. But you look at this Ravens team and their situation when it comes to this draft, you don't have this quarterback situation figured out right now. So that puts you in pretty interesting territory when it comes to the draft. If at that 22nd pick, likely one of the top quarterbacks is probably not going to be available. So do you go to the next tier of quarterbacks and go with a Hendon Hooker? Do you trade up potentially? And then if you get a deal with Lamar done, then do you shift focus and go receiver? Or do you go corner? Who's a player that comes to mind that the Ravens should draft? Tell us in the comment section. We'll shout you out. We'll get you on the show if you tell us who you think the Ravens should draft. Yes, Sam Brown.
I think everyone needs Hooker on their team.
Yes, everyone needs Hooker on their team, says Sam Brown. In all seriousness, though, Sam, and maybe you need to share the bike with a text or something. I don't know. But Hendon Hooker, this is a guy, Hendon Hooker, as Sam Brown is here. We also got Big Tex in the house. We'll introduce Big Tex coming up later. But you have a situation with Hendon Hooker where if he would have stayed healthy, if he wouldn't have torn his ACL, no question about it, he would have been a first-round pick. Now you're looking at a 25-year-old quarterback coming off a torn ACL where he had one great season. To me, it seemed like Hendon Hooker would have been a really good pick prior to the injury. Now, with all these things adding up, I mean, I got my question marks as far as Hendon Hooker goes. I'm not questioning his talent level, but it's the other factors.
Yeah, I think a lot of these factors that you're hearing come into play aren't really even necessarily about the player himself, right? It's the injury history. It's the Josh Heupel Mickey Mouse offense. It's, you know.
Sam knows all about that.
Oh, yeah, no kidding. It's a little bit of those two. I mean, those two are the main factors, obviously. It's the fact that he's 25 years old. None of the negatives that I've heard outside of, a few of those finer-tuned details, none of the big negatives around Hendon Hooker have to do with the actual football player.
Right.
And so you're sitting here wondering, well, I mean, if he's got first-round talent, is he worth considering? But, yeah, these factors, the age and the ACL in particular, the age, he's not going to get, how much better is he going to get at that next level? Does he have another level in him, or is this the player that you're really going to get? And then you add in the fact that his knee's kind of busted up. He's progressed well in his injury, but it wasn't a simple ACL tear. Like, this was apparently a relatively serious injury.
Well, and Samuel, you make a pretty good point of, you look at the other quarterbacks in this draft, of whether it's Will Levis or Anthony Richardson, you are asking the questions of, do they have the talent level, what it takes to play in this league? Comparably speaking with Hendon Hooker, we're not asking about talent. We're asking about age, the ACL, those things. Like, it's a different set of problems compared to the other quarterbacks.
And I think there's one thing that we're doing too much of, I think, is comparing Hendon Hooker in comparison to last year's quarterback draft class, which was notably weaker.
Yes.
And trying to figure out where he would rank in that draft class. Like, I've heard people compare him to Desmond Ridder. He's a better prospect than Desmond Ridder was.
Yep.
Desmond Ridder was drafted in the 3rd round, I believe, number 81 overall by the Falcons. So
Correct.
the fact that I think that we're trying to put him in this sort of box with last year's rookie quarterbacks is not fair to him, and it's not fair to the rest of the quarterbacks in this year's class either.
Oh, 100%. Checking in on the chat, Marco says Ravens won't sign OBJ unless he changes to playing defense. Then he'll have a big contract in minutes. Marco, that's funny. That's a good one there. Jimmy says Quentin Johnston, round 1. Johnny says, give me Addison over Johnston. Okay, so very interesting to see what the chat's saying. Feel free, get in that chat, get lively in that chat, and that's the best way to communicate and respond and be on the show is by getting in the chat box there. Let's see, we're at 4 likes right now. I got 17 people watching. Guys, we can do better than that. Here's the thing. While you guys are here, I need you to like the video, and that helps the algorithm. And so more people can be a part of the show and join us. And so we can have a good time talking Ravens and just, having ourselves a final Tuesday afternoon here on the channel. So go ahead and like the video to start today's show. We're at 4 likes right now, which, I'll be honest, is a little weak if we're being real with y'all here. So here's what I need to do. I have Fireball in hand here. Hey-oh. We get to 10 likes, I'm taking a free shot. And speaking of free, and Sam Brown will take a shot too. So we're at 6 now. I need 4 more likes, and we're taking free shots. In fact, I'm going to get ready to pour it. Speaking of which, we have a Super Chat menu today. Here's the deal. You can have your face on screen. You can get screen time and everything with your questions and comments or whatever it may be. It doesn't even have to be Ravens related, to be honest. Whatever you want, we will get you on screen with a Super Chat. And this is a great way to interact with the show and also help and support the work that we do here at Chat Sports is by Super Chatting. Any Super Chat gets you a shout out. We'll get you on the screen. We'll respond. We'll show you some love here. And I got to tell you, when you get that Super Chat, when you get that moment in the spotlight, there's really nothing like it. I mean, it just gets a little tinkling inside going. Put it that way. $2, you can ask us anything, whatever's on your mind. We can talk March Madness. I was at the national championship game last night. You can ask Sam about what Sooner the Ravens are going to bring in next, because that feels like that happens almost every year.
This year's pick is
Let Sam think on that. $5 will, yes, Sam.
Jalen
Redmond to the Ravens. You've heard it first from Sam Brown. $5 will do the wave. For whatever reason, we got some Ravens fans in here that like us doing the wave, so we said, all right, if we're going to do the wave, it's going to be a Super Chat menu item. $5 will do the wave. $10, we're taking shots. $20 will do a beer chug. Sam, we reached our 10 likes, so you and I each got to take a shot. I'll pour you one up here. And now, Sam, no spilling this time. Sam spilled some coffee earlier in the studio.
Right there.
It smells like coffee.
Right there.
Yes. Smooth move there.
Doesn't smell that bad.
Slippery Sam. At least it was coffee. There's worse things to smell out there. All right. So, cheers. Let's have ourselves a day. Go Ravens.
That's kicking.
Oh, yes, that's kicking right there. All right. Let's go ahead and we'll get started with today's show as we'll begin with the latest Baltimore Ravens news and rumors. Then after that, we will do a live Q&A mailbag. Use the hashtag Ravens to get on the show, and you can also super chat, and you'll get on the screen as well. So that's one way to get involved. And then also, we will look at first-round draft targets for the Baltimore Ravens. We'll get to all of that and more coming up in just a few moments. So that's what's on tap today for this live edition of the Ravens Rundown. Hit that like button, comment, be interactive, be a part of the show here on the Ravens Rundown. Dante, I see your question. That's a great question for the mailbag later. So Dante, here's what I need you to do. Either super chat or use the hashtag Ravens, and your question that you just put in there will get on the mailbag when we get to that coming up. So Dante, do us a favor and use that hashtag, and we'll get you on the mailbag coming up later on. So let's go ahead. Sam, Tex, we all set? Cool. All right, let's get started here on this Tuesday afternoon. Ravens Rundown live. Tyler Jones, Big Tex, Sam here with you. Let's have ourselves a day, shall we? Welcome in to the Ravens Rundown, powered by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. Thanks for joining us. Coming up on today's show, we'll have the latest Baltimore Ravens news and rumors. We're talking about Odell Beckham Jr., also Kareem Hunt, and a connection with the Ravens. Yes, you heard that right. Also, Todd McShay has his latest NFL mock draft out. We'll tell you who McShay is projecting to end up with the Baltimore Ravens. We'll go over all of that and more coming up in just a few moments from right now. Before we do, folks, we are battling our fellow AFC North channels here at Chat Sports, and we are at a nice number of 69, but it could be nicer. We are getting very close to catching up with those pesky Steelers. And so I want to take it to Pittsburgh Steelers talk with Goofy Jack Sperry, and I want to own him and all those Steeler fans and their ridiculous, butt wipes or whatever they call it, the terrible towel, I don't know, whatever it is. We want to make sure that we own them and put them in their place. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel now. Let's prove that we have the best fans in the entire division. And that if you want more Baltimore Ravens coverage, this is the channel for you. News and rumors, live shows. We're counting down to the draft. We're talking free agency, trades, and more. Subscribe now for free, and we'll get started with today's show. So for several months, we have talked about the possibility of Odell Beckham Jr. heading to the Baltimore Ravens. And a new report that came out over the weekend was, according to ESPN's Adam Schefter, that the Ravens made a formal contract offer to free agent wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. Now, remember, let's take a couple steps back here. There was reports that OBJ was looking for a one-year, $15 million deal. Now, that is significantly more money at $15 million compared to some of the top wide receivers that were on the market this year. Jacoby Myers, Juju Smith-Schuster, and those guys. That's a lot of money that OBJ was wanting, especially coming off that ACL injury. Now, at this point in time, we don't know what the offer was, but according to Shefty, an offer was made. Remember 2 weeks ago, OBJ complained that his best offer was $4 million, that to him, it wasn't worth it to play for $4 million. He's worked out for 12 teams, including the Baltimore Ravens. So at this point, we know that the Ravens have made an offer and that he has worked out for the Baltimore Ravens. Now, I'll say this. As far as the situation goes with OBJ and coming to the Baltimore Ravens, if you're OBJ, okay, let's take a moment and be in his shoes for a second. Why on earth would you sign with this Baltimore Ravens team right now, not knowing what the quarterback situation looks like? If you're OBJ, why would you come to the Baltimore Ravens if you don't know who your quarterback is going to be yet? Now, maybe he does want to play with one of these rookie quarterbacks, or maybe he wants to play with Lamar. I don't know what OBJ's thinking. But wouldn't you at least like to know the direction they're going before signing? That's what I would think. So although OBJ has had this offer and the workout and the discussions have been there, and it seems like progress of some sorts to a deal, I mean, in OBJ's case, it just doesn't make sense. Maybe OBJ really likes Baltimore. Maybe he enjoys some crab cakes or something. I don't know. But to me, I would be surprised if OBJ signs without a Lamar deal or figure out his future in place when it's all said and done. The numbers on OBJ, obviously he didn't play last year with that torn ACL. He was a big part of the Rams Super Bowl run in 2021. They wouldn't have won that Super Bowl without him. 2020 was a down year for OBJ, only playing 7 games with 3 touchdowns and 319 yards. But the last time that we saw him play a full regular season, you go back to 2019 when he played 16 games. That's when we had a 16-game schedule. And he had over 1,000 yards receiving, 74 catches, and 4 touchdowns. So, Will OBJ sign with the Ravens? This is our pinned comment today. You might get an ad break. If so, take advantage of it. And tell me, real simple, OBJ, will he end up signing with Baltimore? OBJ for yes, no, BJ for no. OBJ for yes, no, BJ for no. Let me know in the comment section below. Kareem Hunt, could he be headed to the Baltimore Ravens? Strange, I know, right? Rumors are swirling all across the internet over the last couple of days around whether the Ravens would be interested in potentially signing Kareem Hunt. We've seen a lot of him within the division in the AFC North, but what about the idea of coming to Baltimore? Well, Mike Fisher of SA Ravens Country, very smart guy. He had this to say about this situation and these rumors that are flying around about the idea of Kareem Hunt. Baltimore already employs J.K. Dobbins, who is due to be allowed to be in every down pack, with Gus Edwards behind him. We're not sure why Baltimore needs another runner, and we bet Hunt would eyeball the situation here and realize he'd be joining a too crowded backfield. Now, I'll say this. Kareem Hunt is a very good running back. This is not about the talent level of Kareem Hunt here, okay? Kareem Hunt, he's a very good football player. But as what was pointed out from Sports Illustrated there, you have a Ravens running back room that's already full as is, with J.K. Dobbins looking really good in the second half of last year. Gus Edwards coming back off of a pay cut. Heck, even brought back Justice Hill, for crying out loud, okay? And for me, if you're the Ravens, if you are going to make a move at the running back position, you know what makes sense? A young running back, day 3, not a veteran running back. Okay? You want fresh legs. You want cheap money. Kareem Hunt, neither one of those things. Kareem Hunt, fine football player. I'm sure he's going to be fine wherever he goes. But Baltimore, I don't care what the rumors are. This one just doesn't add up at all. The numbers on Kareem Hunt. Here's what he's done the last several seasons. And remember, he's been the number 2 back, although Kareem Hunt's talent level is good enough to be a starter in the league. This past season, 123 carries, 468 yards, 3 touchdowns. You go back to 2021, he had 5 touchdowns there with a close to 5-yard average. Hunt's a good player, but as far as the fit with the Ravens, that doesn't really make sense. Should the Ravens sign Kareem Hunt? What do you think? Let me know in the comments section. S for sign, P for pass. What say you? Should the Ravens sign Kareem Hunt? Let me know in the comment section below. S for sign, P for pass. The NFL Draft is just around the corner, and you're in luck because we are selling draft hats on sale now while supplies last. Look, your favorite Ravens rookies are going to be taking the stage at Union Station in Kansas City, Missouri here in a couple weeks, and they're going to be wearing the same exact draft hats that you are seeing on your screen right now. The flat bill, whether it's the white, the black, whatever it is, they're going to be wearing these hats. And I know a lot of you are going to be going to draft parties, hang out with your friends, whatever it may be on draft night. Why would you not want to wear the hat that those guys have? You'll be the coolest one at the party, and you'll be representing your favorite team at the same time. You can have it before the draft as well. Get yours now. I got a special link. Go to chatsports.com/RavensDraft to get these hats now. You'll be glad you did. You'll be looking great. You'll be representing your favorite team at the same time, too. Chatsports.com/RavensDraft and get your hats today. All right, one final note before we go. Todd McShay of ESPN has a brand new mock draft that was released this morning. It's 2 rounds. Obviously, the Ravens don't have a second-round pick, so in this case, he only mocked the first round for Baltimore. But I want to go through what McShay had to say and react to the mock draft selection that McShay has for the Ravens. With the 22nd overall pick, Todd McShay selects Quentin Johnston, wide receiver from TCU. Not the first time we've seen Quentin Johnston projected to go to the Baltimore Ravens with the 22nd overall selection. Here's more from McShay on the pick. I like the idea of the big 6'3 receiver in new coordinator Todd McShay's offense. Johnston is still refining his route running, but he has a big catch radius, can make plays in the vertical pass game, and will pick up chunks of yardage after the catch. Now, I really like Quentin Johnston. He's one of my favorite wide receivers in this draft. I would not be complaining at all if the Ravens end up picking Johnston with this pick. It would be a great addition. And think about this too, okay? The upper tier quarterbacks in the 2023 draft, which I think we would classify as Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, and Will Levis. I think we can expect that more than likely all four of those quarterbacks are going to be gone by the time the Ravens pick. So if they're picking at 22, and if Lamar Jackson is gone and they're looking at their quarterback options, or if Lamar's back, whatever it may be, no matter what, picking a wide receiver here is not a bad call. Even if the Ravens don't have the quarterback situation figured out by the time the draft rolls around of what they're doing with Lamar in that situation. Either way, picking a wide receiver and picking a receiver of the caliber, the talent of Quentin Johnston, to me, that's a win. That's a pick that you'd be feeling great about. The Ravens are desperate at the receiver position, okay? You need somebody to play alongside Rashad Bateman. This is a big, athletic receiver that can get downfield. This is your guy. Quentin Johnston would be a win-win for the Baltimore Ravens no matter what the quarterback situation looks like. So, as we're wrapping up today, who should the Ravens draft at 22 overall? Now, if they trade Lamar, you'd have to think that they'll get some additional first-round picks and be picking earlier in this year's draft in addition to the 22nd pick. But just at 22, who should the Ravens pick? Let me know in the comment section below. You can also interact with me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Tyler Jones Live. You can follow me there, and I will see you next time right here on the Ravens Rundown. All right, one down, two to go. Mailbag coming up in just a few moments. Use the hashtag Ravens or Super Chat to skip the line and get your questions on the mailbag. Tex, we still need some more questions, right? Yeah. Let's throw that question up there that we were asking folks. The OBJ question. I want to weigh in. I want to go back and read the comments. Brandon says, "What up, Jones? What up, Brandon? Good to see you here, man." Johnny agrees with me. That's very good. Brandon says they should not sign OBJ. They need to get a deal for Patrick Queen. Now, that's been one thing that's been talked about is the possibility of the Ravens moving on from Patrick Queen, potentially. Johnny says, I disagree. We need to subtract from defense and upgrade to the offense. Johnny, you might be on to something there. Brandon wants to trade Justin and draft receivers. Brandon, I get that. I get where you're coming from. Let us know in the chat, will OBJ sign with the Ravens? Type OBJ for yes, NOBJ for no on the show today. Brandon, Johnny, I see Dante also checking in the chat. Glad to have you guys here on this Tuesday afternoon, spending it with us here on the Ravens Rundown. Mailbag time coming up in just a bit, but we need some more questions. I saw some comments from you guys, Brandon, Johnny, Dante, Jimmy, Marco, and others. I want you to be a part of the mailbag, but in order to do so, the way that our system works to get on screen and get those questions asked, I need you to use the hashtag Ravens or Super Chat to get those questions for the mailbag that we'll get to coming up in just a bit. So that is how that works. Need you to use the hashtag Ravens or Super Chat to get to the mailbag that we'll get started here in just a few moments from right now. Mailbag time. Send in your questions. You can also send in questions as we're going along here today for this mailbag that we'll bring you coming up in just a few moments from right now. So don't miss out on that as we bring you that mailbag here on this Tuesday afternoon. Let's get some more shout-outs here. Let's see. Brandon, Johnny, Dante holding down the chat. Jimmy and Marco as well. Who else is here? Let us know. I a grand total of 24 people watching right now. Let us know who you are of those that are here with us, and we'll shout you out and appreciate you joining us here on this Tuesday. Mailbag time coming up in just a moment. Hashtag Ravens or Super Chat to skip the line and get your questions in coming up on the mailbag. And like I was saying a moment ago, as we're going through this, if there's something that you think of, if you got like a follow-up question or maybe something that you think along the way, use that hashtag Ravens or Super Chat to get on there. Like, I see DOA, you got a comment in there. Same with Corebuster, but I can't put that on screen. I can't get that in the mailbag unless you use the hashtag Ravens. Dante, good work. Good work on using the hashtag Ravens. Everyone be like Dante. Use the hashtag Ravens or Super Chat, and we'll get you on the mailbag. If you Super Chat, you'll get to the very front of the line of the mailbag that we'll do here in just a few moments. Mailbag in just a bit here on Ravens Rundown as we will answer whatever questions you guys have in our live mailbag. Use that hashtag Ravens or Super Chat here on this Tuesday. Tyler Jones, Sam Brown, Big Tex here with you as we're talking Baltimore Ravens football. We're getting you ready for the draft coming up later on. We will go over first-round draft targets for the Ravens. Who should the Ravens select? We will go over all that coming up in just a bit. Dante using the hashtag Ravens. Dante's got it figured out. I need more people to be like Dante and use that hashtag Ravens and get your questions in. As I see, only a couple questions have been in so far with the right format of using that hashtag Ravens. So be like Dante and do it that way, and we'll get started here in just a minute. Guys, we almost ready? We almost ready. Okay. One more. Let's see. Dante, Corebuster as well. Corebuster says Queen is getting traded draft day like Hollywood. Let's see. Tom Downey checking in the chat. Thank you, Tom, for getting that question in. Who else has got questions for us? We'll react to those here in just a bit. Hashtag Ravens or Super Chat to get those questions on the mailbag as we get started here in just a moment. All right. Mailbag time. And let's go ahead and get started with the mailbag. We all ready to go? Cool. All right, here we go. Mailbag time here on the Ravens Rundown. Let's get started. It is time for a award-winning mailbag edition of the Ravens Rundown. Tyler Jones here with you. Appreciate you joining us. Coming up next, we will answer whatever questions you guys have. Use the hashtag Ravens or Super Chat to get on the mailbag. And this comes from our live show that we do on Tuesdays, and you can be a part of these mailbags by turning on notifications and subscribing to the channel to get your questions in. We'll answer them in real time here on the show. So make sure you subscribe and be a part of our live shows and get your questions in. So appreciate you guys doing that. Let's go ahead and get to our first question in the mailbag today. It comes from Dante. What are some day 3 QBs we may be sleeping on? Dante, that's a very, very good question here. Thanks for sending that in as far as that goes when it comes to this draft. You know, it's very interesting when you talk about the day 3 quarterbacks. We've talked on this channel this week about Hendon Hooker of here he was, I think, when the ACL injury happened, that he was looking at being a day 3 guy, right? And now all of a sudden, he might work his way in to being a first-round selection, maybe even win the Ravens pick. And so that has kind of reshuffled the order a bit of some sorts of when it comes to these potential guys that will be around day 3. I look at Tanner at Stanford, and this is a guy that I think could be around that the Ravens could be looking at potentially that is going to be a 5th or 6th round pick. And, you know, had a lot of problems, I think, with when you looked at that Stanford team this past year under head coach David Shaw, that there was concerns with that offense, that they didn't have the skill position players, that they weren't up to par to what we saw the last few years with that Stanford program. So if Tanner can find a way to get in an offense that has weapons and a competent system of some sorts, that could be a guy potentially I'm looking at. So that's one option that comes to mind. Thanks for the question there, Dante, for letting us know there. Tom writes in, dream first-round pick for the Ravens. Well, I love the wide receivers in this draft. And so, Tom, I would personally go receiver. In an ideal world, Lamar Jackson's back, and you don't have to take a quarterback, right? And so then you get skill position players. And you look at the wide receiver room for the Baltimore Ravens, there is some major concerns about that wide receiver room. I mean, your best receiver, Rashad Bateman, is been dealing with injuries the last couple of years and hasn't been one to be reliable. He needs a running mate. And the other guys didn't really step up when they needed to be. I mean, think about Demarcus Robinson, right? He was the guy you asked to be your leading receiver last year. I'm sorry. No offense to D-Rob, but that shouldn't happen. So with that said, I'm looking at this draft. Quentin Johnston, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, those two guys stand out to me. Zay Flowers and Jordan Addison are pretty solid as well. But for me, it's getting that receiver, getting a guy that can have an instant impact on this offense that can be your go-to guy for quite some time. I'm looking at, that's who comes to mind for me for this Ravens team, is going with one of those two big-name receivers like Jackson Smith and Jigba or Quentin Johnston to fill that wide receiver position. Thanks for that, Tom. Ravens fan for life writes, what are the chances the Ravens draft Anthony Richardson if Lamar doesn't come back? Well, we were talking about draft stock earlier with Hendon Hooker, and think about this with Anthony Richardson. This was a guy that when the draft process kind of started back in January, towards the end of the NFL season, the playoffs and everything, that was projected to be available around the time the Ravens picked at 22. Then he has a really impressive combine where his athleticism was on full display, and now his stock has just skyrocketed, where he is expected to be a top 5 pick, and who knows, maybe depending on the team, he could get picked ahead of Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. Might be a long shot, but certainly possible at this point. So with that said, if the Ravens are to get Anthony Richardson, it has to be a situation where somebody that's picking early in the draft decides they want Lamar and they give up that early pick in the draft that puts the Ravens in position to get Anthony Richardson. That's what it had to be. So it's a few dominoes to fall to get to that point, if you want to put it that way, when it comes to this Ravens team of their chances of drafting Anthony Richardson. So I would say that it's not likely to happen, but we've seen crazier things before. Our pet comment today, should the Ravens draft Anthony Richardson? Let us know in the comments section. Type Y for yes, type N for no. What do you think? Should the Ravens draft Anthony Richardson or not? Y for yes, N for no. Let me know. Marshall writes in, should the Ravens sign Deion Jones? Deion Jones, a very fine football player from the Atlanta Falcons and who's had a very good career to this point. I'll say this much, though. The Ravens, as it's been well documented, do not have money to spend. Cash is hard to come by these days for the Baltimore Ravens. So whether you wanted Deion Jones or not, the money just really isn't there at this point in time. So, Marsh, no, I don't see that being the case of money being there for that type of move. But nonetheless, thanks for the question there. Tom writes in, will Rashad Bateman become a wide receiver 1 this year? Ravens fans, I think, would like to think that's the case. You would be optimistic and hope that Rashad Bateman can become that guy, but I think the truth of the matter is that Rashad Bateman, first off, in order to be a number 1 wide receiver, you got to be dependable. You got to be on the football field and be reliable. He hasn't been that for the Baltimore Ravens. He has not been a guy that can be counted upon to be said number 1 wide receiver. So that's the first factor. Now let's go to the second factor in all this, right? And the second factor with the Ravens and with Lamar Jackson, or with the situation there with Rashad Bateman, is the talent level, okay? Let's be honest here. Rashad Bateman, of what we've seen, granted it's kind of a small sample size, he doesn't look like a number one wide receiver. He can be a really good number two, but he doesn't look like that number one guy as at this point. That's not a knock on him by any means. I think he's a very talented football player, but I don't think he's in that upper echelon. They need help. Bateman can be your number two guy, and that's fine, but he's not your number one as far as I'm concerned. We'll answer more of your questions coming up in just a moment when you use the hashtag Ravens or Super Chat, part of our live show of this mailbag here on Ravens Rundown. Before we do, though, draft hats on sale now. Get yours today. These are the same hats that the rookies are going to be wearing on draft night. You can get yours now at chatsports.com/RavensDraft. And the flat bills are available, whether it's the white, the black, whatever it may be. Ravens fans, you are not going to want to miss out on these awesome hats that we're selling. It's a great deal while supplies last. You can get yours, order it today. You'll have it in time for the draft. That's a big deal, especially if you're at your draft party or wherever you may be. You want to be wearing the same thing that the draftees are wearing. And you can get yours now for a limited time, chatsports.com/RavensDraft. James writes in, what are the Ravens' three biggest positions of need in the 2023 draft? Well, let's consider, for all intents and purposes, because there is not a contract in place for Lamar Jackson right now, the quarterback position being one of those. And for me, it's wide receiver, it's corner, and it's the quarterback position. It's those three that are the biggest need at this point in time. Now, if Lamar were to get a deal done tomorrow, all of a sudden you have that need taken care of. But at this point, Lamar wants to be traded, and you don't have a deal done, so quarterback position remains in need. Corner, I mean, you look at that, Marlon Humphrey's really good, but he needs a running mate. Yes, Marcus Peters is out there, but you need to get younger, okay? You need to find that next man up potentially. I think it's time to move on from Marcus Peters, unless he takes some nice team-friendly deal of some sorts. And then the wide receiver position. We talked about it earlier. For obvious reasons, the wide receiver position needs a lot of help. Those are the three biggest needs. Chet writes in, if Lamar is gone, would you prefer a 2023 quarterback in the draft, trade, or a free agency? Chet, this is a very good question as far as the quarterback situation goes. And for me, I would prefer a quarterback within the draft. As we talked about earlier, barring some trade that opens up where the Ravens find themselves trading with a team within that top five, it's going to be tough to get one of those upper echelon quarterbacks of some sorts. But think about this, okay? Where are we at in the offseason? It's April. Free agency has passed us by and everything with that. And so we know that the Ravens had interest in like Baker Mayfield or some of the other guys that were out there like Jimmy Garoppolo or whatever it may be, Derek Carr. That time has come and gone. So there's not really a free agent quarterback out there that's worth your time and investment. And the trade-wise, there's not really any quarterbacks that are on the trade market. Aaron Rodgers looks like he's headed to the New York Jets, but that kind of is just what it is. So maybe there's a deal in place for a Kirk Cousins or a Ryan Tannehill. If one of those teams were to require Lamar, you get one of those guys back. But there's something unique about the rookie quarterback system of how much cheaper those guys are and what it does to allow opportunity to pay other positions instead of the quarterback. That's what I'd be doing. If you're not going to pay Lamar, if you're not going to throw that money out there, might as well build a good team around a young quarterback and save at the quarterback position. That's what I would look at. Folks, we're talking about your Baltimore Ravens each and every day with the latest happenings in your favorite team. We're talking news and rumors, trades, free agency, and more. This is the place for you. If you haven't subscribed already, what are you waiting for? Folks, it's free. It doesn't cost you a thing. Turn on notifications so you never miss a moment, so you can be a part of our live shows. If the Ravens make a move of some sorts, you know we're going to stop whatever we're doing. We're going to bring you a video as quickly as we can to break down the Ravens moves. That's what we do here at Chat Sports. Subscribe now. Turn on notifications so you never miss a moment. Hi, Ray. Good to see you. Hashtag Ravens. Is a long-term deal for Lamar with the Ravens still available? Yes, it is. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. It is still possible. And think about this, okay? You may be sitting there saying to yourself, well, Lamar already demanded a trade, right? He doesn't want to be here. That might be your thought and state of mind, and I understand if that's how you feel. But here's the thing. Time is all relative, right? Does anyone even remember that Deebo Samuel demanded a trade from the San Francisco 49ers last year? And then what happened? He got paid. He still ended up playing some running back, even though apparently he didn't want to. And they went to the NFC Championship game. And he was a good soldier and had a good attitude, and that's water under the bridge. This relationship can be salvaged. Lamar can still get a long-term deal. He can come back to Baltimore. He can be there a long time. Will there need to be some reconciliation of some sorts? Yeah, there would be. But it could happen. I mean, did anyone think Bobby Wagner was going to come back to Seattle with that situation, the way that they cut him last year and, you know, his public backlash against the Seahawks and all that? So, yeah, I mean, we've seen that this can be worked out. I don't know what the answer, what the solution, the timing is going to be, but it's certainly possible. Thank you, Ray, for that question. Where will Lamar Jackson play next season? Let us know in the comments. Will it be with the Ravens? Will it be with someone else? Tell me where Lamar Jackson will suit up this upcoming season in the comments section below. Dante writes in, I think we're going to draft Brian Breesy from Clemson because he's the best player available. They could. Brian's a good football player. You know, it's been interesting watching his stock as well because he was so high as projections top 5, top 10 at one point. Then I've seen others that have had him falling out of the first round altogether. He's kind of gone all over the place. But when you talk about talent and ability and those things, it's there with Brian. But I think the Ravens probably have bigger needs than Brian. So I don't see that pick happening. But nonetheless, good thought there, Dante. Last question from Marshall. What do you think about Zay Flowers? I think Zay Flowers is a hell of an athlete. A very good route runner, can be a good slot receiver, and whether you bring Lamar back or you have a young quarterback, if you can get the ball in those tight windows and move the ball downfield through short yardage and those quick passes and have a target like Zay Flowers available, that could be a very good fit for your offense, for your scheme of what you're trying to do. Zay Flowers could be a very good fit for the Baltimore Ravens. I would like that possibility. We'll see what the Ravens do there. All right, mailbag time in the books. We got one more segment to go. We are talking draft targets coming up next. But I want to hear from you guys as you're in the chat. What's your one-word reaction to the UConn Huskies winning the national title last night? It was not a close game. UConn dominated, as producer Sam's back with us now. Sam, I was at the game last night, and I got to tell you, that UConn team is one of the most impressive teams I've seen in a long time. You could tell
it was right about that 12-minute mark where you're like, okay, they showed up tonight. They just showed up, and they were just having a good old time. San Diego State was just kind of outmatched from the start. The one-word reactions, the correct one-word reactions are over, because the over hit, and cover, because UConn covered. I made money on both, no brag, but good teams win, great teams cover. So cover and over. Those are my one-word reactions.
Cover it over. My one word is going to be domination. That is a dominating team, and we've seen in college basketball when teams dominate, I mean, it's a whole nother level. I mean, we saw Villanova a few years ago, what they brought to the table. This team here with UConn, we've seen some North Carolina, the North Carolina team several years ago. I mean, every once in a while, Sam, we get to the NCAA tournament, and it's so funny because Baltimore Get Up says, I heard a ton of people had to go to the hospital after the game.
Yes, the protests, or not protests, the celebrations at UConn left 15 people hospitalized, or 16 people hospitalized, 15 people arrested and charged with crimes.
Okay.
You got to fight for your right to party.
Yes. In the words of Travis Kelce. I'll say this. You know, we've looked at college basketball the last few years. It was so funny. Everyone said all season long this year, there's no great teams. There was a great team. It was called UConn. We figured that out as the tournament went along. But we see, historically speaking, Sam, when that one team, that great team that stands out, doesn't matter what Cinderellas are there, nobody can stand in their way. And that was this UConn.
Yeah, I remember looking back, and I caught this on a video a little while ago, Tyler. I don't remember if I even showed you this, but the guy was mentioning, so 100%, and this streak now lives on, 100% of the national champions since 2002 ended the year with a top, I believe it was top 40 Ken Pom offense and top 22 defense. I'm trying to find the picture on my phone. But UConn was one of those teams. They ended the year, finished, they had 100% of the national champions since 2002 have been both a Ken Pom top 40 offense and top 22 defense. This was a while ago. This was back in February when I saw it, but there were only 6 teams at the time. Houston, who wound up getting injured. Brandon Miller, Alabama, I should say, who, dealt with what they dealt with.
He was that team.
Yeah. Kansas, I think Kansas had a very realistic shot. Who'd they lose to? They lost to Arkansas, who then lost to UConn. Creighton made a good run there. UCLA lost to Gonzaga, who then lost to UConn.
Right.
Those were the 6 teams.
Very good points. Sam, bringing the stats here with us.
I'm just trying to feel better about myself because I picked UConn in a bracket, but I did not actually bet a future on them. I could have made $300 on UConn if I wanted to. Just throw 10 for 300. So that's how I help myself sleep at night.
Whatever helps Sam feel good as far as that goes. But UConn winning the national championship, 5th since 1999. A lot of fun to be at the Final Four this weekend, I can tell you that much. Houston was a great host for that. Baltimore, get up. That's hilarious that you bring that up on that end. One more segment to go. Let's talk draft targets now. And we will discuss. I have 5 players to look at potentially for the Ravens with the number 22 overall pick. Who could they take? We will tell you coming up in just a few moments from right now. Guys, we all set? We good to go? Okay, cool. Let me adjust my headset. Give me a second here. All right, I'm good. Welcome in to the Ravens Rundown by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. Thanks for joining us. Coming up on today's show, we are going to talk about draft targets for the Ravens. They hold the 22 overall pick in the draft. And if the draft were held today, who are some players that the Ravens potentially could pick at that 22 spot? We will go over all of them in just a few moments from right now. Before we do, I want to get to the real ones, the real members of the Ravens flock. Where are you guys at? If you've been a Ravens fan for at least 5 years, go ahead and smash that like button and show some love and flock out with your hawk out if you would. And here's what I want you to do. If you've been a fan for less than 5 years, and that's okay because we got some younger fans, we got some people that may be new to Baltimore, whatever it may be. If you've been a fan for less than 5 years, go ahead and get in the comments section and tell me how long you have been a Ravens fan. We'll get started with today's show. So we are going to go over some draft targets for the Ravens. 5 players. I'm looking at 3 different positions of need, the biggest priorities for the Ravens. At this point, we don't know if Lamar Jackson is going to be back with the Ravens or not, so I do have a quarterback on this list. I have 2 corners, and I have 2 wide receivers. These are 5 possible options of players that could be available for Baltimore at 22. So let's go ahead and get started with a wide receiver. Jackson Smith and Jigba from The Ohio State University. I got to tell you, JSN is a terrific football player. He missed most of last year with a hamstring injury. But here's the thing, folks. If you go back in time, in the hot tub time machine to just a year prior ago, and he was playing alongside Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson and company, and he was better than those guys. And they've had pretty good NFL careers already to this point in their rookie seasons. Jackson Smith and Jigba can be that guy. And he can be a possession receiver. And you're looking at a Baltimore Ravens team that needs all the help they can get at the receiver position. JSN can be a nice fit. Lance Zierlein of NFL Media had this to say about Jackson Smith and Jigba. The scouting report: possession slot receiver who lacks the shake to separate underneath and the speed to run past defenses. He's tough in the middle of the defense and has proven he can make catches in congestion, and will need to fine-tune his route running to give himself his best chance. Those things are workable, so his flaws even are stuff that are manageable, but he's well on his way. I would love to see him in Baltimore myself. Got a couple more names to get to in just a second, but let's start with Jackson Smith and Jigba. Should the Ravens draft JSN? If you think they should, type Y for yes. If not, type in for no. Here's your chance to be the GM on the Ravens Rundown. You might get an ad break. If so, take advantage. Have I get your votes in? Y for yes, in for no. Should the Ravens draft Jackson Smith and Jigba or not? Tell me in the comment section below. Another wide receiver. Now, JSN might be my favorite receiver in this draft, but Quentin Johnston is a close second. And we've seen some recent mock drafts as of late, whether it was Mel Kiper Jr. or Todd McShay. Some of these others have been picking up steam of connecting Quentin Johnston to the Baltimore Ravens with that 22nd pick. Now, Quentin Johnston, this is a guy that was a first-team All-Big 12 performer the last 2 years, was a finalist for the Bolitnikoff Award. And you want to talk about talent level. Who is his player comp? It's a pretty good one. Alshon Jeffrey. Isn't that what this Ravens team needs? Is an Alshon Jeffrey a lookalike or a 2.0? That'd be an excellent fit. Look, I don't care who's throwing you the football. If I get the second coming of Alshon Jeffrey, that's exciting. That'll get the juices flowing. Lance Zierlein, the scouting report on Johnston. Long, striding vertical threat who can open up and separate when allowed to keep his feet moving in space. His elevation and catch radius create an expansive target area down the field, but his overall success rate on contested catches is way lower than it should be. Fair, but he's got the size. He can be a deep threat, stretch the field a bit more. I like Quentin Johnston a lot. Next up, Joey Porter Jr. And I know, Ravens fans, you may be saying to yourselves, really? The son of a Steeler legend? That guy? Yes, Joey Porter Jr. Yes. And he did say, by the way, it was at the Combine a couple weeks back. Producer Sam was there, and he said that he has no problem with playing for the Ravens. There's no bad blood or anything like that. So it's not a issue of some sorts. But here's somebody that was a second-team All-American this past year, first-teamer in the All-Big Ten team. And the thing that I look at with Joey Porter Jr., this is a player that he's not going to be your 5-6 interception type. That's okay. He's going to be your no-fly zone type corner that is going to play lockdown defense, that's going to do things that route. And that's fine. And the Ravens could certainly use that. Would be a nice compliment from Marlon Humphrey. Remember, you already have a really good safety room as well with Kyle Hamilton and Marcus Williams and company. So Joey Porter Jr., watch out, could really be something special for that secondary right away. Zierlein on Joey Porter Jr., an ascending cornerback, combining traits and above-average play strength that create a clear definition of who he is as a player. He can reroute the release and has the frame to close catch windows against big receivers in press man and in cover 2 looks. So how about that? The evaluation there on Joey Porter Jr. He's a terrific talent. And this is not a deal, folks. I'll tell you this, too. A lot of times when you carry the name of a previous great player, family member and all that, we know about nepotism. There's no nepotism here with Joey Porter Jr. He is that good. He is that dude. What say you? Should the Ravens draft Joey Porter Jr., JSN, maybe somebody we haven't talked about or haven't gotten to yet? Let me know in the comment section. Who should the Ravens draft? Give me one name that you'd like to see in a Baltimore Ravens uniform in 2023 with the 22nd overall pick. Give me one name that comes to mind you'd like to see the Ravens draft. Couple more for you here. Staying on the defensive side of the ball, let's go to Deonte Banks, the corner from Maryland. Deonte Banks, I think Ravens fans are pretty familiar with him, as I'm sure we have some Maryland fans watching our show today, obviously. Four-year starter with Maryland. He did suffer a season-ending shoulder injury in early 2021, but other than that, he was pretty reliable for his time there with Maryland. And this wasn't somebody that won the big-name awards or anything like that, but when it comes to the measurables and what he did at the combine and his pro days and all that stuff, that really impressed the decision makers. There was at one point in time where we were looking at mock drafts where Deonte Banks was looked at as a potential day 3 guy, third, fourth round, and now it seems like it's almost a sure thing that he'll be a first-round pick. Now, granted, pretty much all the corners, their stocks have gone up, but Deonte Banks is no exception. As we learn more about him, his rate has gone up. Zerline on Banks, perimeter corner with desired blend of size, strength, and athleticism. Size matters. Banks is capable of release disruption from press. He plays with smooth hips and easy feet to pedal and glide around the field. He's capable of matching his release and running with his opponent. Last one on the list of draft targets for the Ravens. I promised you we would get to a quarterback. And the quarterback that we have here for you, it's not Anthony Richardson. It's not Bryce Young. It's not C.J. Stroud or Will Levis. Hendon Hooker, potentially, for the Ravens at 22. Yes, he's 25 years old. Yes, he's coming off a torn ACL. But if the Ravens are picking at 22, those great quarterbacks, the high-profile one, the top-tier ones, aren't going to be around at 22. Hendon Hooker is the next best thing once you get beyond that first tier. I mean, he is, this is your Kirkland brand buy or something here, when it comes to Hendon Hooker. Now, producer Sam and I were talking about this earlier, that with Hendon Hooker, no one is questioning the talent level of Hendon Hooker. I mean, SEC Offensive Player of the Year, first team All-SEC, was on his way to being the Heisman winner and taking Tennessee to their first ever college football playoff, had all those things going for him. But then he suffered the ACL injury back on November 19th, and we don't know when necessarily he's going to be ready to go. He's got the comparison to Desmond Ridder, according to Zerline. And I got to tell you, with Hendon Hooker, if the other factors weren't involved, the ACL injury, the being 25 years old, if he were just a little bit younger, didn't have the ACL injury, this is an easy call for the Ravens at 22 if they are looking for a quarterback, if they're done with Lamar. But with those other concerns, then that makes this a little bit tougher as far as that goes. Zerline on Hooker. Hooker plays with excellent poise and footwork as a pocket passer. He will make quarterback coaches and play callers happy with his adherence to keeping plays on schedule. He's still showing signs of improvement and growth at the position. At 25 years old, still showing signs of improvement and growth, that's what you want to hear. That's very good there from a Zerline on that front. So with that said, should the Ravens draft a quarterback in round 1? What do you think? Type D for draft, type P for pass. What do you think? Should the Ravens draft a quarterback in round 1? With what we know right now where things stand, is that what they should do? Tell me in the comments section. D for draft, P for pass. You can interact with me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, also on Facebook for that crowd as well. That's Tyler Jones Live. You can find me there. I'll see you next time here on the channel. All right. So we are through all of our segments now. And so I want to hear from you guys. Should the Ravens draft a quarterback in the first round? Brandon says no. I see Baltimore Get Up says pass as well. What else do you guys say? What should the Ravens draft a quarterback within the first round? Brandon says if you draft a quarterback in the first round, Lamar Jackson will not show up. Okay, Sam, here's a scenario to think about here as we're kind of wrapping up today's show. Let's say it's draft night and you're the Ravens and you don't have the Lamar Jackson situation figured out. At that point, if let's say you like Hooker, for example, just one name out there. Or
well, who doesn't
be.
like Hooker?
If you like one of these quarterbacks and they're around at 22, I think you have to pick them. And maybe you still work out the Lamar Jackson deal and you trade the quarterback or they sit behind Lamar, whatever it may be. But if there's a quarterback you evaluate, I don't think that a unresolved Lamar Jackson situation should stop you from drafting that guy if your situation with Lamar isn't figured out.
So I look at it a little differently.
Okay,
and I think, if the two options are Lamar winds up staying in Baltimore,
right.
Cool, you don't even have to worry about it. You don't
right.
if he winds up signing a long-term extension, he's your guy, let's ride. And at that point, you're probably picking best player available, probably your wide receiver to pair with Lamar, and at that point, you're not concerned about it. If Lamar isn't back, chances are you're not going to be great next year. But I'd like to believe they're going to get some sort of draft compensation back. And in my eyes, I would much rather look forward. I would much rather, as much as I don't like the idea of tanking, but I'd much rather suck for a year and have a better chance at a Caleb Williams or Drake May next year than I would trying to get whichever guy falls to 22.
That's
you know
fine
what I mean?
too. Yeah, I get that. That's a very good point.
I think I'm higher on both of those guys, and I'm pretty sure most draft people are than any of the quarterbacks in this year's class.
I think you make a good point. I agree with you there. Brandon says pass. Let's see. Baltimore Get Up says pass. Let's see. Honey says, I love all your picks, Tyler, except the Hooker option. Well, I had to present a quarterback. And he's the best one of who would be around there. I don't think the top four is still going to be there. If somehow Levis falls to 22, I would kick the tires. Baltimore, I get that. Thanks for chiming in on that. We're about to sign off. Before we go, though, let's make sure you subscribe to the channel. We want to grow this thing. We want to be able to do more live shows, more content for you. But we need your help to do that. Subscribe now today. Sublink is in the chat. And we have daily news and rumors segments. We do these live shows every other week. We're counting down to the draft. We're going to have some really great draft coverage coming up when the draft gets going here. We're also talking free agency, trades, and more. This is the channel for the diehard Baltimore Ravens fan. Sublink is in the chat. Subscribe right now. If you love your Baltimore Ravens, subscribe now. And I think that will about do it. Guys, we all good? All right, we will sign off and have a great rest of your Tuesday, everybody. Thanks for spending part of it here on the Ravens Rundown. We'll see you next time.